Boone. I work for the Aspen Institute. Welcome to July 3rd, our, I don't know what night, into the Aspen Ideas Festival. I am really blessed to be able to just quickly introduce, but it's hard to quickly introduce a session like this, because I think you're going to meet some very, very interesting people tonight. But the people that I really want to thank are the people who made it possible. Jackie and Mike Bezos and the Bezos Family Foundation have created an opportunity every year that we've done this for 12 high school juniors to come to Aspen to be part of the Aspen Ideas Festival. And 1 year into it, they decided that not only was it important that those high school juniors, who are extraordinary in their schools, they're from schools all over the United States, come, but that their administrators and their teachers also join them. So we have 24 people who represent high schools from states across the United States who are meeting with the leaders that are present at the Ideas Festival and who hopefully are being as inspired by everything that's happening at this event as we are. And these are the kids, as many of I'm seeing young people in the audience and other young people here, who are going to lead us into the future. And we feel very, very strongly that exposure, ideas, conversation are what are going to take these kids forward. And I want to thank Jackie and Mike because they have vision and commitment. And the gentleman that I'm going to introduce in a second, who is Chris Plutt with the Global Nomads Foundation, is another example of their generosity, because they are also helping this organization link children from different countries to meet other kids from different countries and realize that we're all on the same planet and we're dealing with a level playing field when we're all youth, talking to youth about serious issues in our society. We've created a wonderful evening tonight with extraordinary young people who are going to talk about their lives, with an extraordinary man who is going to introduce them, and an extraordinary woman who, I have to say, since I've met her, is not only a brilliant playwright and an author and actress, but a good friend. I welcome Chris Plutt, I welcome Anna Deavere Smith, and to all of you that are going to be on our panel tonight, thank you. Jackie and Mike, you're wonderful, we love you. Thank you all for coming. I think it's going to be an extraordinary evening.
Good evening. I'm Chris Plutt, and I'm co-founder of Global Nomads Group. And I, as well, would like to thank the Bezos Scholars program at the Aspen Institute for having this evening for us. So maybe they wouldn't mind standing, and we could applaud them as well. So many of you are attending the Ideas Festival this week, and myself and 3 of my friends from college, we had a big idea ourselves. And that was to get young people to put down their textbooks and start learning about the rest of the world by going to the rest of the world via video conferencing. So I'm going to show you a brief video about our programs and what we do.
When a bomb fell, you just feel the ground shaking under your feet. I don't want to remember these days. We're not soldiers. We're not police officers. We're just, trying to do our best to keep our families safe.
Seeing other people dying, seeing my cousins dying and calling for help and not finding it.
Global Nomads Group. We bring children together from different cultures, different countries, different religions, to show them we're not so different after all.
I don't like riding camels. I don't have a bomb in my pocket right now. And you don't look like cowboys who like to fire.
They don't represent Islam in any way. Actually, they go against all our scriptures and all our beliefs.
We are not so different from each other.
I'm an Arab and my family are Arabs and we're not Arabs.
An eye for an eye is not a solution for such things.
As they say, prevention is better than cure.
Today we're going to do our best to understand each other and our different beliefs.
Global Nomads Group connects children from all around the world, classroom to classroom and face to face, to promote understanding, responsibility for the future, and most importantly, empathy.
A group called Global Nomads set up a link between American teenagers and Iraqi teenagers.
You know, it's a great group, Global Nomads Group, and they believe that through familiarity, you can breed a bond.
An effort organized by a non-profit group called Global Nomads. Check out www.gng.org.
Satellite video conferencing links students in Wiley with students in the Middle East.
During a unique video conference, they exchanged opinions with students in Amman, Jordan. A non-profit group called Global Nomads organized the video conference to help teenagers broaden their horizons.
Today's young people are the answer to future peace. Organizations like Global Nomads Group are contributing to this important endeavor by working directly with youth around the world. My name is Michael Douglas, and I urge you to support Global Nomads Group as they make the world a better place through dialogue and understanding among the world's youth. Please join us.
So that was our idea. We've been doing it for 10 years. We've reached over 1 million kids so far. And that's our mission. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Anna Deavere Smith, acclaimed actor, playwright, teacher, and author, and a friend of the Institute, and along with the panelists as well. So Anna.
So good evening. Thank you for coming. I'm honored to be here. And I had some opportunity to spend some time with these young people. And I'm certain that you're going to find their stories to be very, very interesting. So tonight's event, Against All Odds, Profiles in Resiliency, will explore the nature of resiliency, the process by which 4 young survivors of genocide, war, and gang violence have transformed heartbreaking tragedy into inspiration and action. The evening will offer video clips and a personal introduction to our panelists, followed by a group panel discussion, and then, of course, we'll have time for your questions. So, our panelists this evening are Ingrid Inema of Rwanda, Josh, I'm not sure how to say this. Is it Josh Miller of the United States. Lavetta Kanto of Liberia. And Ying Lao of Burma. So we're going to see how resilience works, how these young people have overcome tremendous adversity against all odds to become leaders of their generation. According to UNICEF, at present, more than 40 countries, 90% of them low-income nations, are dealing with armed conflict. Armed conflict provides the breeding ground for human rights abuses. Worldwide, an estimated 22 to 25 million persons have been forcibly displaced within their own countries by armed conflict, internal strife, and serious violations of human rights. The most vulnerable of the affected populations, women, children, the elderly, and infirm, and also most at risk for torture, sexual abuse, displacement, and forced military service, migration, starvation, murder, and genocide. Gang violence. Do sirens and gunshots provide the soundtrack for your neighborhood? How many of you know to duck and cover when you hear the sound of gunshots while you're sitting at your dining room table? How many of you here tonight worry about being shot as you walk your child to school? Gang violence, with its racial rivalries, has reached epidemic levels in Los Angeles and is increasingly on the rise in cities like Baltimore, Seattle, Greensboro, Fort Worth, Pittsburgh, and more. This evening, the stories of these 4 survivors of armed conflict, of genocide, of gang violence, that's what we're going to look at. They've lost their families, their friends, and in some cases, their homelands. So we're going to welcome your questions, and we're going to celebrate resilience tonight. Resilience. I hope you'll carry some of these stories with you. So first, let's meet daughter of Rwanda, Ingrid Inema.
It was the bloodiest period of the Rwandan Civil War. On April 6, 1994, Hutu extremists unleashed a genocide on their own countrymen. Some 800,000 people were murdered over the course of 100 days, a deliberate attempt to exterminate the Tutsi minority. The Rwandan genocide was the quickest, most brutal killing spree in the 20th century.
And we started to go in different paths, to hide. I knew, inside me, I knew something is happening. Many days of the genocide, we used not to eat. Except if you're scared, you don't even feel hunger. You don't.
Ingrid Inema was 7 years old when she was forced to flee her home. She fled with her sister after their father was killed. Her mother simply disappeared.
I didn't even say bye. I just ran away saying, "Mom, you'll go in the afternoon. Okay, we'll meet again." And then I just ran outside and we didn't meet again.
For months, Ingrid and her sister wandered through the swamplands and villages of Rwanda, scavenging for food, looking for shelter, trying to escape the killing mobs of machete-wielding Hutus. Then she was captured.
And it was the worst. It was the worst. Yeah, it was all bad, but it was the worst because they would go and kill people and come and give us the machetes to wash them. They tell us to wash them. And you remember, maybe this is my cousin. Maybe maybe this would be me or my sister.
During a video conference organized by Global Nomads Group in 2004, Ingrid spoke about her traumatic experiences surviving the genocide. Her elegant, quiet power became the inspiration for a GNG documentary, Rwanda Alive.
Never again before. What about now? Is it for nothing also? What if in some years it happens again? Let's not allow it. Let's not allow it. It's much painful. Very painful.
Her dramatic story moved others, and recently, with the help of Global Nomads, Ingrid was offered a full scholarship to Stanford University. The school's first ever student from Rwanda, she is now studying medicine and has plans to return to Rwanda to help rebuild her country. Since arriving in the United States in the fall of 2007, Ingrid has spoken to hundreds of students around the country about her experiences, and her message is powerful and clear.
I am alive, and I have 4 sisters, and I'm here, and what I'm going to do is live, and live fully.
So, Ingrid, I wondered if you would mind actually telling us what did happen to your mother and your father.
So, the genocide started the 6th of April, 1994, and 2 days before, my mother, we had family we used to live in Butare, that's the That's a smaller town in Rwanda, and we had an uncle who lived in Kigali, and my mom had gone to visit them 2 days before the genocide started. That's why I said, Mom, bye, you can come back and I'm going to see you. And we didn't know anything about the genocide. And we stayed with our father and my 5 siblings at home in Butare. And when my mom had gone, that's when the genocide started. So what I say now is the story I know, how my mom died and my dad. I asked people they were with. And my uncle, the one my mom had gone to visit, was respected in the village. He was this guy who had many children, and when the genocide started, everyone came there. Everyone who felt unstable, they said, it will be safe at his place. So they came there, and there were 100+ people, and they happened at that time to be digging a pit so that, for sewage, and it was very, very deep, maybe 20 more meters deep, and right when everyone had gathered there, that's when the Interahamwe, that's what they call them, the Hutu militias, that's when they came, made so many of them, and they lined them up. That's what they did during the genocide. They lined you up in, at this big grave, this mass grave, this big pit, and they started killing all of the people who were there, and they killed them, and maybe when they were at maybe the 40th, the 50th person, they were really tired, so they cut your head, throw you down in that pit, and up to the 50th person, they were really tired of killing them, so they just cut their arms. They didn't even kill them and throw them in there. And then after everyone was in there, they got some wood, and then they got some petrol, and then they burned them. And we didn't know about this until in 2006, when because that's not honoring your people. So what we do in Rwanda, every April, we go to those mass graves and we dig up those bones and we bury them with honor. And we went there, and people told us how they had killed them, and we were not even sure my mother was there. But when we dug up, we were hoping for maybe a cloth or just a sign of her being there. But we found an earring, and we were sure that she was there, because it was only bones. You can recognize your people when it's only bones. So so that's what happened to Mom. And then Dad, we were with him, and we tried to go away to Burundi, but the borders were closed, and we had to come back. Our family was all together, and then we said that we can't stay together. We have to divide ourselves and go different places. Me and my sister, she was 10, I was 6, going to 7. We went to my godmother, and then my father went to my brother with other men, and they went back to Butare, where we lived. And my dad was killed by his best friend. He lived right there. I used to play with his kids. I know them. And they threw his body. That's what we heard, that they threw his body right, across the street from us. And we haven't yet found our dad. And we went and checked out the place where they say that they threw him, but we didn't see the body. Maybe, we think that maybe the rain washed him away, or that they didn't really throw him there. So we don't really know yet, but that's pretty much what happened to my parents.
And of course, there's a national campaign in Rwanda for forgiveness of the people who killed your parents or harmed your parents and your friends. And I wonder about you and how you came to that, if you believe in forgiveness, and if you can help us understand something about what forgiveness requires.
I really, really, really believe in forgiveness. I really believe in it, because I know that we are humans. And one time I saw this guy being stoned to death, and from the first stone to the last, I don't even know, maybe there are 1 million stones that killed him. He was piled, and when I saw that, during that moment, when you're seeing that, you don't see anything. You don't even see, I didn't see an animal doing that. I saw a human being harming another human being, and I wondered, and now I think about it and I don't understand, but I know that we're humans, and I know that, this world is for all of us, and if we don't forgive each other, then, one of us, some of us will have to just shift maybe to another planet or something. And even then, if we haven't forgiven each other, we will pursue each other even if we live at different planets. So forgiveness is very important. I forgave the people who harmed me.
Where does it come from? Does it come from your heart? Does it come from God? Where does it come from?
I think it comes from, the first thing, it comes from God. But I know that some people don't believe in God but haven't forgiven. So I don't think I think it comes from seeing things and thinking about them and thinking about the future, not only focusing on the past, but the present also. Saying that if I dwell on this, my life now is just miserable. If I see them and just feel like grabbing their necks, my life is miserable now, and I want to live well. I want to be a happy person. I want to be happy. And I think forgiveness, I think, comes from looking at tomorrow, but also looking at the present and knowing that, you know what, you can also do that, given the right conditions. Mm-hmm. I'm sure everyone here has harmed someone some way.
We all have the potential.
We do. And so just comes from looking at all those things.
So speaking of happiness, you're now at school on the Happy Farm. Are there any Stanford alums in the audience? Raise your hand if you went to Stanford. So one of the questions I asked Ingrid is, with thinking of the things that's happened to her, what it's like for her to hear some of the problems. I taught at Stanford for 10 years. Hear some of the problems of her classmates. Will you say something about how you see them from your point of view?
I don't know. I don't understand them. I respect everyone's problems because they are theirs. And, and because they worry about them, I really respect it. But really, I think
like, for example?
Okay, for example, someone takes a quarter off because I have no friends. I have no friends, so I'm taking a quarter off, and I'm going to be at home. And that person is a freshman. And I ask myself, you're just a freshman. Of course you don't have friends. And I just don't understand them. And I envy them sometimes. But I really don't understand how you can worry about that to the extent of not having sleep and not doing well in classes just because you don't have friends. So, yeah, I don't.
Thank you so much. Let's take a look at a story closer to home. Our next guest, Josh Miller, who traveled a very short distance from Los Angeles. Here we go. Please welcome Josh to Aspen.
For Josh Miller, it was the story of his friend Eddie Lopez that changed his life. Eddie was a model student, an athlete, a second-generation immigrant living in Los Angeles.
He was an honor student. He was supposed to be the first in his family to go to college.
But when Eddie was just a sophomore, he was gunned down by gang members, a case of mistaken identity.
Got along with everyone, no matter what color of your skin you were or how much money you had. So when he was killed, it affected a lot of people.
But Josh, rather than simply mourning his loss, decided to be inspired by it. He remembered that he and Eddie had talked frequently about some of the inequalities they saw in school. Eddie had noticed it in his advanced classes.
He talked a lot about how in the honor and AP classes at Santa Monica High School, there weren't a lot of minority students.
So Josh had an idea, and at just 17, he founded a program dedicated to the memory of his friend, the Resilient Youth Foundation, a program to develop self-confidence and good work habits in students from all backgrounds, to help inner-city kids succeed in their educational lives. He focused it on all of those honor classes.
I think it's important to focus on something that some people would see as trivial as AP and honors classes, because those AP and honors classes help determine what kind of college you get into. And what kind of college you get into help determines what kind of job you get. What kind of job you get helps determine how much money you make and your status.
In a documentary that Josh made called Tracking to Nowhere, he used voices from his own school to talk about inequality and high school achievement.
But we're really dealing with a problem within our society at large, and therefore it's hard to say, yeah, it's a problem here at Santa Monica High School that's unfortunately systemic.
My goal is to teach kids that they can defy what everyone else expects of them. I think that's what really inspired me about Eddie, is that he defied what others expected of him.
For Josh, this was one way to let Eddie's legacy live on, one way to change the world.
So Josh, you said in one sentence, but my sense is that there's much more to be said about the notion of Eddie being able to get along with everybody. What made that remarkable?
Well, Santa Monica is pretty unique in the sense that it's split right down the middle by the 10 freeway, and on one side of it is the 12th most expensive zip code in the United States. Don Cheadle lives there. Arnold's not too far away. And on the other side of the freeway, they tell you not to walk through the park at night because of the gang violence. If you're Hispanic or African American, you can't go out past 10, or you shouldn't. So there's a feeder middle school for each community, and they both meet at Santa Monica High School. And Eddie was my best friend, and he was on my football team and baseball team. And at our school, while it's 50% white and 50% minority, it's incredibly segregated. I mean, there are even names for it at lunch. There's Disneyland for the white people, there's Africa for the African American people, and there's Mexico for the Latinos. And Eddie really was this transcending force within the school. He was the most charismatic guy, the funniest guy. He brought everyone together. And he came from a family where his dad wasn't around. His brother was a gang member. His cousins were gang members. They were extremely poor. His mom barely spoke any English. She worked 2 jobs, including night shift at Rite Aid, just to get by. And just to give Eddie the opportunity to go to college. He was going to be the first in his family to go to college. And he really was this role model and this leader for everybody. So yeah, that's why he was so inspiring to me. Was just, his tenacity and his resilience, and he was just an unbelievable kid. And he never wanted your sympathy for his struggles or for where he came from. He just wanted your friendship and your love, and he wanted you to succeed as much as he wanted himself to succeed.
And what year was this in your high school education that Eddie was killed?
During my sophomore year, at the beginning of my sophomore year.
And were other students affected by it the way you were?
Oh, yeah. No, tons. I mean, when I started my foundation, I came up with the idea because Eddie used to complain about how the school was so diverse. I mean, we had this great thing where we had the city that had everything. We had all these opportunities. It was half white, half minority, yet in the AP and honors classes, it was 90% white. And he couldn't understand why, with all these opportunities, why his fellow minority students didn't care about their future. So he really affected a lot of people. So after he died, and he always talked about how he wanted to dedicate his life to changing that. He wanted to dedicate his life to motivate his fellow minority and underprivileged students to succeed. So when he died, it was the first person I'd ever had die. No family members, no friends, no anything. So it was really my way of living the dream that he never had. And immediately when I vocalized that and said, guys, let's do this, let's do it for Eddie, I mean, the response was unbelievable. I mean, lawyers who were charging $800 an hour incorporated us and made us a 501c3, for totally free. We raised $40,000 in 2 weeks. I mean, the response was unbelievable. So, Eddie really did touch a lot of people. He was an unbelievable kid.
And people who get along with everybody are no stranger to you. You were telling me that in your family, there's a joke about your mother, that if you go out to dinner at a restaurant, she'd probably invite the valet home for dinner or a drink.
Yeah, that's correct.
So you've grown up in this environment of fellowship as a part of who you are. So what do you think is going to happen when you go to Princeton? I keep asking, anybody from Princeton in the audience? I keep asking him what he's going to do about the eating clubs, if he's going to join and stuff. What do you think what do you expect to do with this wonderful gift you have also to bring people together? You're not going to leave it in Santa Monica, I hope.
Well, actually, I think the fact that it is Princeton is perfect because there is that response. And we're going to expand. We plan to open branches in New York and Chicago and San Francisco, Riverside County, and LA County this year. And I think actually Princeton is the perfect place, to bring the organization to. They have the Woodrow Wilson School, and the head of the undergraduate program there, his specialty is tracking and everything that I've been working on, and we've already met. And Trenton, the state capital, is 20 minutes away, and it's incredibly impoverished. It's 60% African American. Their schools are struggling, and I don't think it matters where we are. We have people across the country that are helping us and that care about this. So.
And Princeton bred Wendy Kopp, Teach for America. Lots of talent in the history and in the water. And lastly, for you, Josh, what do you think about when you hear Ingrid's story? When she was just talking about the watching the man be stoned to death, what goes through your mind?
I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. I first heard her talk last night, and I raised my hand and told her after that she's quite possibly the wisest person I've ever heard speak. And, I've gotten a lot of recognition for the stuff I've done, and I've been around a lot of powerful people and high-up people, and nobody has inspired me as much as she has in the past 24 hours. I mean, if you haven't seen it, see Rwanda live. The way she describes it and the way she presents herself and presents her emotions and carries herself is just unbelievable. And, I mean, just as inspiring as when Eddie died, just what she persevered through, I can't even imagine, When I was asked to do this and I heard her story and their story, my first reaction was I can't put myself in this category. I can't even imagine. So it's inspiring, and it just gives me another reason to keep on going forward with the foundation and expand it, and it's awesome.
They have a budget of $80,000. I'm sure they could take your checks if you wanted to give it. So Lavetta Canto, the beautiful woman to my left, has traveled from Liberia to be with us tonight. And let's look at her story.
During the 1980s and 90s, war was a way of life in Liberia.
Yeah, people was dying, children was dying, sickness, and no food to eat, no shelter, no clothes. Because of the war in my country, I decided to come to Ghana for me to live.
In 1997, a young girl and her father fled Liberia's civil war. At 4 years old, Lavetta Canto became a refugee.
Growing up in the refugee camp, life didn't look like it was going anywhere for me. Whatever pain you go through, you should just be brave.
Part of Lavetta's pain was simple loneliness. Her mother had been forced to stay behind in Liberia, and her father had to leave the camp often to look for work. Lavetta stayed with various families there, but was often alone in a camp of 47,000 refugees. It was a hard life.
People are suffering in the camp, and sometimes the sun girl hot, and people no food to buy water. Stuff is very hard, very difficult.
But Lavetta persevered. She stayed in school and also helped American volunteers build a school for other children in the camp who did not have parents. She became an advocate, fighting for special education for sight-impaired students in the camp. Due to her stunning resilience and leadership, she was chosen as the first Strong Heart Fellow, a groundbreaking program to help exceptional young people who have survived, even thrived, despite being orphaned or displaced by war. For her Strong Heart project, Deavere, who has long dreamed of becoming a fashion designer, created a necklace crafted from the bullet casings of the Liberian Civil War. To symbolize her new life, she added a simple leaf pendant inscribed with one word, life.
I think the necklace inspired me when I wear it that I'm keeping people memory, people who have died a long time ago, people who lost their family through the war. Each people who buy this necklace are taking someone's memory with them.
As part of her fellowship, Deavere has traveled to the U.S. and met with other students from around the world. And now she wants to return to Liberia to create yet another dream born of her love of design, a teen magazine for the young people of Africa.
Deavere, I'm wondering if you would talk a little bit about your father, and your mother and your father. Talk a little bit about them.
Well, my father grew up in this little town called Burma County in Liberia, and that's the same place where my mother grew up too. So they got together, then and they had me. So. And so, like 1992, then the war started. Then it really, really started. So there was like my mother. There was no option. They just have to split because one person just have to go to another place and other person just have to stay. And the war just have to just destroy them like that. So my father, who got educated because his mother sold everything she had just to send him to school, and he believed in education. And my father didn't, and my mother didn't believe in education because her parents didn't send her to school, and she just farmed, and that was all to it. So I came from these two, both family that was like that. So it was like hard to it was hard to like really come to it like that. So my dad took me to Ghana, and my mother stayed in Liberia. I haven't seen my mother since I was a baby, and I still haven't seen her yet. So, so I grew up not having a mother, and I don't know where my mother is, but I know my father is.
But your father sounded to me when we talked yesterday like a really remarkable man who was always at your side.
Yes. My dad always told me, like in the middle of hopelessness, my dad always told me that I could believe in myself and I could do so much thing in the world, even though if I was in a refugee camp, that I could have hope, I could dream for tomorrow, and I could be who I want to be. I could be the Deavere Conto that I want to be. So,
And can you describe for us, when you say hopelessness, what that's like? What it was about the refugee camp that seemed particularly hopeless to you?
Well, in the refugee camp, it was like the people in the refugee camp, they lost their family, they lost their loved ones and everything. But the most important thing, they lost their country. They did. They lost their country. And imagine, like, losing your country and losing everything that ever belonged to you, everything that you ever imagined, everything that you ever hoped for, every single thing that you ever dreamed for, to have a country that one day when somebody asks you, where are you from, you can say, I'm from Liberia, and this is who I am. They're just stuck in the refugee camp in Ghana, and like in a refugee camp. I remember the first time going in the camp, I was full. I was like really little. It was a whole new world that I came to experience. It was like the camp was dark. It was like people just coming and coming and coming. And you know what? Doing that, you have a mother that comforts you. but I had to learn it the hard way.
But you know, I think one of the most important things you learned, which probably worth a whole book, is you learned how the power of imagination.
Yes.
You learned the power of imagination.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Okay, so in a refugee camp, there's nothing is pretty, and there's nothing people is wishing for that is pretty, because they have already lost their family, they have loved their country and stuff, and they won't even imagine anything in their life. And some of Liberia there just thinking, oh, I imagine myself being the world greatest. I imagine myself traveling from here. I imagine myself being who I want to be. I'm Liberia, and this is what I want to do. But my imagination, it saw me more than I was, because I was like in a refugee camp.
It saw you more than you were.
Yeah.
So what did it see you as?
It saw me that it saw me as if to say that being a refugee camp can't stop you. You can be whatever you want to be. Don't make that be excuse.
But most importantly, I think, is this word beauty. You somehow were able to see beauty there.
Yes.
And we talked about beauty here yesterday, but what you must have seen some beauty there to be able to imagine fashion. Yeah. What was some of the beauty you saw in this rather hopeless place?
Okay, so most of the time, my dad would go to Accra, the capital city of Ghana. He'll go look for jobs, so he takes me to Accra, and I like to stare at people, the clothes they wear, and just look at them. So I stare at them and look at how beautiful they are, and like how then in the car driving and stuff, and I just like, wow, you know what? I think I could be like that. I think this is so beautiful, and this is what I love to do. This is what I want to do. Then imagine that. Then going back in a refugee camp just breaks me down again and say, but I just came from imagining something beautiful. And now I'm back again in this camp that's nothing is beautiful. Then for me to tell people that I want to be a fashion designer, just look at me like, what is wrong with you?
Tell us. Can I take this?
Oh yeah.
So, what's beautiful? Tell us the beauty of this.
Okay. Like this, it's like a.
Into the mic.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you. It's like a thread. It's like a rope, right? Yeah, y'all see it. Yeah, but it's not just a robe. It's like designed in a different way, and like not just designed in a different way, but it have stuff that backs it up like this. Like see how like different green it has in it. You see, it's have different kind of colors. So imagine if you just like put the green on this and without this, imagine how it would look like. So. So then we have this guy here that came to help it make it pretty, because this one already have his beauty, and this one she already have hers. So then they came together to make this one pretty. So so all of them just work together. So yeah, kind of like that.
Tell us. And lastly.
Thank you.
And lastly, give us your eye on Aspen. Tell us what you think is beautiful. No, tell us what you think is beautiful about Aspen.
The mountains. The mountains is so beautiful. As Chris, when I came, I kept saying in the car, it's so pretty, it's so pretty. You know what? The mountain is beautiful, okay, by itself, but imagine like the snow on the mountain, make it more beautiful than the environment. It's like you could put a mountain like in a dirty place, and you could and you would just say, it's a mountain, okay, and you just walk away. But you see that it's already in a beautiful place, and then
So you see beauty as context.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
You continue. I shouldn't stop.
Oh, it's okay. So yeah, so like the snow on the mountains in a pretty place, and everything on the mountain is green. So yeah, I think it's really beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. And our final guest tonight is Ying Lau of Burma. I'm sure many of you are involved in campaigns that have to do with Burma. Please join me in offering a warm welcome to Ying before we watch her video.
Ying Lau was born in a small town in eastern Burma.
I was raised by my parents, like very liberal, like very free. I think when I was like very little girls, it is the most happiest time for me because I didn't know what all the problems that my family are facing.
And the problems under Burma's brutal military rule were metastasizing. Now the world finally understands, under the hot spotlight of international media attention since the military's violent crackdown in late 2007,
there are stories of blood stains on the floors.
When thousands of monks took to the streets in pro-democracy demonstrations. The brutality of the military junta had long made life difficult and dangerous for the people who lived there.
When I was like fifth grade in 1995, the soldiers think that the villagers are supporting the rebels group, the resistance group who are fighting against the military regime. The soldiers order them to leave their village within 3 hours or within 3 days. Everybody has to leave their village. If they are not, and after 3 days, they can be shot anytime.
It was a terrifying existence. To escape the oppression and lack of educational opportunity, Ying and her family made a daring escape to Thailand in 2001.
So we have to walk about 8 days, and then we reached to the border. I was very scared that I would not meet my parents again because we had to separate, like 2 of us go one time, and then they left behind, which we didn't know that when they would be able to cross the border and meet us again.
Once she found safe harbor in Thailand, Ying sprang into action. She joined a women's action network and pushed for the participation of women in the movement for national reconciliation in Burma. And she worked on recommendations for a new, more representative constitution for her country, always hoping to return to the land she loved.
What I have been thinking in my mind all the time is I want to go home.
For her bravery and passionate advocacy, Ying was chosen for a U.S. State Department scholarship. Now studying political science at Indiana University, she wants to use the knowledge she gains here to help finally rebuild her country, a new Burma, one with fierce respect for human rights.
In order to do that, we have to work. We have to, educate people so that people know what is wrong with their life, so that they fight against what is wrong with their life, so that we can go back.
One glimmer of hope amidst the tragic story of Burma's brutal military regime. One brave young girl, Ying Lau.
We're here to celebrate resilience, and we learned something about forgiveness, and we learned something about the power of getting along and galvanizing people across their differences, and we learned the power of beauty. And the way I think about you, Professor, is that you understand a remarkable amount for a person your age about the value of resistance. Tell us about resistance and why it's important and why it's a part of bravery.
Wow. Okay.
I think resistance, it's not being allowed somebody push you down, oppress you. The thing is that in my country, you grew up, since you were born, people in your village go and work for military, the soldiers, for free every single day. Do you think that it is abnormal? I didn't think that it is abnormal. I just think that it is normal. I heard somebody was killed outside of our town since I was born, since I started to remember things. I thought it was normal. This is what life mean in Burma, in my hometown. But my father always tell me, you can be who you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do in your life by not allowing other people push you down.
Tell about the man in the river, the soldiers in the river.
I graduated high school at the time, and I used to go and swim. Actually, I could not swim. I just play water in the stream with my friends. Since we were very young, like very little. At the time I was graduated high school, I was 15 years old. I was playing water in the stream with my friends, and a group of soldiers, they came to that stream, and they scold or yell or shout at us like, leave this stream. They always come to that stream to carry water too. To carry water for their army camp. And I told him, why don't you just simply say that, can you leave for a few moments? We are going to carry water. Fine, we are just going to move for you. But why do you have to scold at us? In fact, my friends, they didn't really know how to speak Burmese. My mother language is Shan, and people in my community, we speak only Shan language. I went to Burmese school, so I could speak Burmese. That is why I respond to him. And he was really angry. And he told me, you know what? I can kill you now. I can even rape you. That's what he told me. I didn't know what to say at that time. I was shocked. But we also have other villagers who are doing farm or things like that at the time, but I wasn't really scared. But when I got back home, I think about it. At night, I was really scared. I was really scared. I didn't want to go outside of my home without other people with me. And after that, every single day, we heard like somebody was killed. A young woman from that side of the town was raped, even gang raped. Or that woman, she went out of the town to find food to do her farm, and she didn't come back home. People looked for her, and then she was found dead, with naked. She was raped by groups of soldiers and to death. So we decided to, it was why we decided to seek for a safer place.
And what did you learn at the Women's Action Network?
Okay. The Shan Women Action Network, the first day I went to that organization, they talk about human rights, they talk about women's rights, they talk about gender, they talk about international law. I didn't know anything. But what I know was that they are opening schools. They open school for refugee children on Thai-Burma border. They have a small clinic to provide basic health care for refugees, in fact, unrecognized refugees, because Shan people are not recognized as refugees by Thai government or by any agencies. So we have no access to education, We have no access to health care, no access to anything. But the only access that we have is Thai police. Thai police come and ask you, where's your identity card? If you don't have, they will arrest you, put you into jail, Thai prison, Thai jails.
Weren't you jailed? Were you jailed?
Yes. And then deported you back to Burma, where you flee from. So I was once arrested on the one in the town that border with Burma. I didn't have any identity card. I was arrested. I was put into the jails for 3 days, and then I was deported back to Burma. The only T-shirt that I have, that I wore on me, has a sentence saying, "May peace prevail on Burma, may peace prevail in the war." Distributed by the Women's League of Burma, which considered as unlawful organization in Burma. So if I was arrested, if somebody found that out that I was wearing that T-shirt, it means that I associate with that organization. I will be arrested by the Burmese soldiers and then put me into jail, 7 years, 14 years, or we don't know.
What is your wish for Burma?
I just simply wish that I can go home and stay with my families. I wish that in our cultures we are really attached to our family. Even if you get married, you still live with your parents, and the parents, they are really attached to their children too. It was very hard for me to apart from my parents when I was 16. At that time, I was already 16, which compared to American teenager, 16, they want to go out. They don't want to stay at home. For me, they go out of their family, their home, by their choice. For me, I had no choice. I have to be apart from my parents. And for my sister, even more difficult. She was only 13 at that time. I know there's that kind of difficulties. I wish no child have to experience those kind of difficulties. And at the same time, one day, in 2002, I went to my parents' workplace. They stay there and they work there. They are working as an illegal migrant workers. Right now they are legal. They have a work permit issued by the Thai government at one apartment as housekeeper. I went to visit them, talk to them, and I told them I have a plan. I'm going to continue my education. In order to do that, nobody can pay for me. I have no money either, so I have to work. So that one day maybe my organization can raise funds for me so that I can come and study. And I wanted to be a constitutional expert. In order to be that, I have to go really, really long way. It is at least 12 years. I told them, my parents asked me one simple sentence: where are we in your plan? I have to be honest. I forgot about them in my plan. But I didn't tell them until right now. You know, it was really difficult. I just solved the problems at that time, oh, you're my parents and you're always in my plan. You're always part of my life. That's what I said, but I was not honest. You know, I just simply forgot about them. And I don't want any parents to have to experience those kind of experience either. It is my wish.
Thank you so much, Yang. We'll take a couple of questions from you, and I think Linda has a microphone. Any questions?
Thank you. My name is Josh, so I'm going to let Josh off the hook on this question.
Could you stand?
Sure. I was just wondering where each of you learned your English and when.
I learned English. Now it's been 8 years. When I started high school, I had always studied all my classes in French. English is my third language.
Do you speak Kinyarwandan?
My first language is Kinyarwanda, and then my second is French, and my third is English. And I learned English in school. And then when I came here, it got really much better because I live with people who speak English, and yes. So.
When did you learn English?
Well, I knew English a long time, but it was a different kind of English. It was like fast, and you couldn't end the endings of your words. So when I came to live to America, they started teaching me to end the endings of my words.
And Yang, what about you?
I learned my basic English in Burmese school in Burma, but my English speaking, every single word that I spoke today was from American students, American college students. Every summer, they will have like volunteers. They go to Thai-Burma border, and they touch English to somebody like me and young people like me in the refugee camp, in internally displaced persons area, which is really dangerous. They have to eat what we eat. They didn't like it, but they try. You know, I always tell people, somebody come and ask me, what can we do? I mean, you know, you just go there, stay there, encourage people, you talk to them, you teach them English, you really make a difference. You bring me in United States, and I'm studying now here.
Thank you. Another question? Well, don't let me suppress any applause. It's a celebration of resilience. Do we have another question? Yes. Is there a mic? Over here.
Hi, my name is Robert.
Okay. Go ahead, Robert.
And if you would have to say something to America, what would you say?
To me? Okay. First of all, you have to, you can write letter to your congressman, to your senator, to your politicians, tell them to pass stronger and more effective bills on Burma. Visa ban doesn't do anything. You know, economic sanction doesn't do anything if you still have American companies inside Burma. So, Americans have very strong position, we're really, really supportive for democracy in Burma by passing law every year about Burma, about sanctions, but visa ban doesn't really do anything. You have to do more than that.
Josh, what about you? What do you say to America?
I don't know what I would say, but I think that one thing that I know I wanted to echo that I know all four of us talked about today is that, you know, we all tell our story a lot, and when we tell our story, we don't seek sympathy from you guys and from anyone that listens, and I think that's important. We seek your strength, and we seek your interest in what we're trying to say, and we really seek your knowledge and your interest in our cause. And a lot of time when you hear stories about Ingrid and Ying and everybody, you know, you want to feel sad and you feel bad, but don't, you know, feel strong and feel empowered and take that and do something with it. Don't sit on that story.
No cheap sentimentality for you, huh, Josh?
And just lastly, I think, you know, when you hear Ingrid talk about her experience at Stanford, I know we talked about this too, that just whenever you face hardships in your life, and I know I do it too, and I will do it after I've heard Ingrid's story and all of our stories, is that whenever you're facing hardship, you know, realize that your life is relative and that it's only as good or as bad as you want it to be. And that always remember that you're blessed to have what you have. And it may sound cliche, but, you know, after you hear stories like this, there's no way you can't know that. So that would be my message.
Ingrid would like to say something.
I really want to support what you're saying, that when you're here, we're not really seeking any sorrow from you. My only hope is seeing you guys here and how curious you are, and how invested in, other people's well-being and you are, and that really, really is some hope for me, and it's hope for the next generations to come. And saying, doing things after here it's not starting an organization, a big organization. That is something great, but you can do something small, and that will count. If we all do little things, it will be really good. If we all become better people, in small ways, it will be great. It will be really helpful for us.
Yeah, and I know we also talked about today, me and Ingrid and all of us, we talked about this concept of, I know the whole theme of this is resilience. And we talked about, what breeds resilience, and we really all came to the conclusion that knowledge does. So, like Ingrid said, you don't have to go out and start an organization. You don't have to donate, quit your job and go join the Peace Corps. Just surround yourself with knowledge and make yourself knowledgeable, and surround your kids with knowledge and teach them about the world and teach them about different people and make sure they're informed. And, that's good enough. And if more people were knowledgeable, the world would be a better place. And, Eddie cared about his future because he went to Santa Monica High School and he saw that there were kids on the other side of town that have dreams for themselves. So he said, why can't I? And that's a problem that a lot of people just don't see the other side, and they aren't knowledgeable about what's out there. So we're blessed. Everyone in this room is blessed to be here and have the opportunity to share that knowledge and be knowledgeable. So, really take that.
Let me get this question. Yes.
Thank you. Ingrid, slightly tougher question on resilience. You told us that you have forgiveness, and you told us you would return to Rwanda, to your country. Can you tell us, are you going to be able to return to your country, and when you do, because I believe you will, how will you give back?
I am studying at Stanford, and I'm a pre-med student, and I plan on being a doctor. And the end point, I know, whatever may happen to me, will be my home. I love Rwanda. I believe in my roots. I believe in my people. And I am going to go back to Rwanda and offer Rwandan children, offer Rwandan mothers good health care. I'm going to give them, a chance to have a good doctor. That is one way I think I'm going to help. Right now I'm studying, and that is what I'm doing now. And in the future, I'll go back home. I'll not only be a doctor, but I think being there will be a good thing for younger people who will look at me and say, I can be that.
Because maybe she'll be the Minister of Health.
Maybe the president.
Or the Ministress. Lavetta, did you want to say something before I take one last question? You sure? Positive?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You could practice ending your words.
No, okay. When they were saying that you don't have to quit your job to go and do something, I think like if you help one person, it's almost like helping a village. And from one person to a village, and you can help a country. So I think that's like the most important thing. You don't have to quit your job and do other things that go and volunteer. Yeah, but you can even help a sister near you. And by helping a sister near you, a sister can help a village. And that's how we can start changing the world, I think.
Thank you. And we'll have one last question. Thank you so much. We'll take one last question, and then I invite you to... Yes, Kitty?
So we call this an event about resilience, but what I think we've really met are 4 people who are leaders. And what I'm curious about is you've all been with other people who've suffered the same atrocities that you've had to face. But what you have all done is decided to turn that into something that you can take forward in your life and for the benefit of others. And to me, that's leadership. And I'm just curious if you feel this is innate in yourself, or if you feel you could all, everyone who's been around you, your other family members, the other survivors, have that same innate instinct to lead. But that's clearly what you are. And I think we're blessed to have had you tell us about that, show us that. But I think that's something that needs to be talked about, Anna, and I don't know how to ask a better question.
Ying, let's start with you. What makes you step forward? Is it the same as your bravery, or is it something else that makes you step forward?
You know, I have never lost my family because of civil war in my country. My house didn't burn down. I was not raped. I could go to school until I finished high school. You know, when I listen to other people's stories that I have met, they don't even know who their parents are. They were playing in the middle of the village, and then the troops came in, shut everything down. They didn't have food to eat. They could not find anything. Luckily, they met the Shan State Army, the resistance group, found them in the middle of the forest, the jungles, brought them to IDP place. They grew up there. Now they are 16, 17, 18. Ask them, how old are they? They don't know. Ask them where they are from. They have no idea. Ask them where's their parents. They have no idea. You know, I am very, very, very lucky. I have a lot of privilege. I could go to school. I could speak Burmese. English is my fourth language. I could speak Thai. I feel like, okay, now, you know, when you know something more than people, I always feel like I have to give something back.
Well,
I always feel like I have duty.
I also think that there is something, Kitty, that is sometimes innate, because your desire for learning and the Burmese language, which you didn't have, was something that you asked your father for when you were how old, 4 or 5?
Okay. I went to school. I speak Shan language in my house, in my family, until 5 years old. 5 years old, I went to my primary school. The first day, I didn't understand anything. The language that my teachers spoke was not Shan, was Burmese. I was really curious what she's talking about. I didn't know. I came home. I asked them. I asked my parents, like, what? I didn't know what the teacher said in the class, and my father started to tell me that it was Burmese language, and I asked my father, can I go to another school, the school that speak my language, the school that I can understand, and he said, there's no such school. I was okay. But and then.
And how old were you?
5 years old. Okay, and then I didn't have a choice. I wanted to go to school. Because I have lots of friends. Even though I didn't understand what they said, I have lots of friends. I can play, so I keep going to school. But when I grew up, and I was really in a history class, you know, we have to study about national heroes. None of them are from my ethnic group. None of them are from my ethnic group. They were Burmese, and they were heroes, they were great, they were blah, blah, blah. I learned those things. I was really curious, is there any heroes from my community, from my ethnic groups? I come back home, I ask my parents, do we have our own heroes? And they said, yes, we do. And then at the same time, I was learning about others' heroes, and people in my community, Shan people, are troublemaker. In the history book that I learned in school, they are troublemaker, they are rebels, they kill people, they try to disintegrate the union, like that's what I have to learn in school, but I didn't really know what the union mean, what disintegrate mean, but that I had to do by heart. If I don't know that word, I fail the exam, so I have to know that. I was really curious, but at least, you know, my father is not the bad guy. My friends' parents are not bad people, but why is that? I asked my father, and my father said, I wanted to know about our history. I'm not learning not my history, it is other people's history. And my father said, well, you will know when the time comes. I said, when the time is going to come? So, and then when I was fifth grade, he taught me Shan. But not at our house, not in any place, but behind his bike. Every evening after dinner, he will ride his bicycle down the town, down the street in our town. I was sitting behind him, and I learned my own language. Why? Because it is a crime to study your own language. It is a crime to teach somebody else this language.
But I think in answer to Kitty's question, it is your appetite for learning and your father's willingness to teach you what you wanted to know while he rode you on a bike into town. So I think that leadership, maybe, Kitty, if we take this example, has something to do with both desire and will and finding a collaborator.
But I think it comes from hearing their stories over the past day or two. I think you're a product of your environment and what you're surrounded with. I mean, if you hear them tell their stories, each one of them talks about somebody in their life that are responsible for how they are. So you hear Ingrid talk about how loving her mother was, and you hear Deavere talk about how inspiring her dad was, and you hear Ying talk about how her aunt, inspired her as a member of the resistance group. And I know personally, my parents around me, they sent me to school where I was the minority in the class, and all we learned about was the Harlem Renaissance, and I was surrounded with people, that were doing good things. So while I do think, part of it is that personal desire, I think a lot of it comes from what you're surrounded with and what you're brought up with and the quality of the people around you and the knowledge you're brought up with. And that was my point before, that I really think that anybody can be a leader. To what extent, who knows? But everybody can make a difference, and everyone can be good people, and I think it's a product of your environment.
Well, I think that we should adjourn, and so that some of you who were too shy to jump up and ask questions can have an opportunity to speak one-on-one with these people. I hope that you have some thought about resilience from this, and please don't be ashamed. It's a celebration. To applaud the resilience of these four people.